Okay, so welcome all to this discussion on hyper personalization, and I'm very pleased to and glad that I'm able to moderate this discussion. So we have a lot of experience from across the board, where people are from life insurance, health insurance, general insurance. We have people from technology background, strategy, operations, and what we would hope to achieve, as an outcome of this discussion is for all of us to really understand the viewpoints from all the panelists sitting here. And I think what we're going to talk about is hyper personalization. But when we talk about hyper personalization, I think we can't not start off with what has happened over the last 2 years. I think COVID happened, the way you conduct business has changed drastically. A lot of customers have moved digital. You kind of have a lot more information about customers than you had earlier, etc., etc. So we'll broadly try to talk about hyper-personalization, though may not be in this order, but we'll try to talk about what is happening in the industry in terms of taking it super close to the customer in terms of sales and marketing, in terms of underwriting, and in terms of service, because this is typically a customer journey, right? So sometimes customers don't know you. You market some random person digitally or physically knocks on your door saying, I exist. Then they engage with you, you get into a sales conversation. Then as part of the sales conversation, there is an underwriting conversation which happens behind the scenes. And once a customer is on board, what kind of service are they getting? So that's where we're going to, these are some of the areas that we're going to talk about. And maybe I'll start off with Suhail. So Suhail, maybe you can just pick a mic. So Suhail, maybe you can just start off with saying, what do you see as the hyper-personalization happening in sales, and marketing side? Maybe it's a very generic question, but I'll start with you.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so I think hyper-personalization is something which is in this industry is just starting. We're starting to see this. Now, if you look at it, I think right from the prospecting stage, today, if a lot of insurers have bank partnerships with banks and other institutions, and there's a wealth of data there. So how can you, analyze that data better? And obviously, with the consent of the customer, you go create pre-approved, curated offers for the customer. Now, there's something which is only valid for that customer, and I think that's the first thing we are started doing in this area. Other is also what we're doing is this, that a lot of customers who are researching online, I think now each individual has his own property. Somebody will go and look at Facebook. So therefore, how the brands are interacting with the customers is also changing. Today, you will have micro-segment, micro-targeting using social media, or you will even have a combo stories. The other big change is this, that the insurance products are not being sold in isolation. It's a financial solution to a problem, and therefore, a lot of times these products are being bundled and sold as a story for an individual. The other big thing we are seeing is how do you start your journeys? Traditionally, every insurer or a bank would have its own asset. Today, realizing more and more that an organization needs to go where a customer is. And therefore, whether it's a Facebook bot or it's a WhatsApp bot, and even sometimes the entire journey starts from that asset and ends in that asset for the customer. We also do, especially in sales, especially in the sales enablement, a huge degree of personalization. One big area we see today is training of the sales force, especially in financial services industry where there's a lot of attrition. A big part is, how do you constantly upskill your field force today with a lot of mobile, on-the-go training, contextual training. You're able to personalize the training to the individual to maximize its effectiveness. So if you look at it, broad all the areas of prospecting, onboarding, and capability building, personalization is here to stay.
Okay, so I'm going to request all of you to have your mics in your hand so that you can chime in whenever.
Hello.
So I think taking on from what Suhail said, Anjana, you work with a lot of sales teams and help them personalize, what they're presenting to the customer. So can you just walk us through what you've seen as the direction that hyper-personalization is taking?
Sure. So essentially, I'll build up on what Suhail mentioned. So a step prior, so right from recruitment, and even before recruitment, how I design my sales patch How can I use the analytics which is available, the insights from analytics, the patches, what kind of insights, what kind of concentration of, customers exists, and accordingly, what is the best fitment of a profile to scout that business. So it starts from there for me. And then how do I make sure, so essentially it's there's a learning path, first 6 months. So how are you performing, linking the sales outcome with the learning so that one can learn at a faster pace? How do I shorten the learning curve by dynamic allocation of the content? Again, it's micro learning, but how do you dynamically assign it basis the performance scorecard? And then it builds on. So as you move on, what kind of nudges do I give to a salesperson? What's the best time for him? Whether he accesses a tab in the morning, whether he's more effective in planning during the post-closure of the day, and accordingly contextualizing those messages. So just example, and yes, definitely once we create the leads, how do we personalize, what kind of recommendations? So how do you personalize to the segment of one, maybe a product, maybe a service? Yes, I just wanted to build on the sales part here.
So I think both Suhail and Anjana come from a life insurance background, but maybe I'll just move to Gaurav. So Gaurav, in general insurance specifically, when I think we'll just take agency as one, use case here. So in agency, a lot of agents are composite agents. So they are not really new to business, like in life. So how do you look at getting those new agents onboarded, and how do you look at hyper-personalizing their onboarding journey before they do it to customers in turn?
See, of course, the agent landscape is very vast and is getting vaster. What we're trying to do is also trying to, USP is something which has just come in, and we're also seeing how reach out to those kind of agents which are there in the market and cross-train them. So of course we have built in digital tools which can help the onboarding journey faster. And of course, gone are the days when we used to have form-based proposal and policy forms which we issued. Now everything is digital, and of course we leverage. We've got something called Smart Zone where all the agents come in. And it is their ERP, and they can start using that from day one. And of course, a lot of things starts from the point of view of sales journey, that your incentivization which we happen at the agents. How do we build logic and rules so that the incentivization is also personalized to the agent, and when he logs in and he sees that this is the numbers he's supposed to do and he's done. And so it's all automated in terms of things that in the entire journey, if there are any sale incentive plans which have been built in, the entire plans are built into the journey. So they know what the targets are being achieved, what they're trying to do. And of course, when the agents try and come aboard, what we also do is that the systems are configured in such a way that it is personalized to their needs. Okay, and we keep on ensuring that we keep on modifying, enhancing, and using the best tools there in the market in order to have them show them the capabilities of the system, as well as of course I think also what we do is we're trying to analyze how the agent behavior and the ability to sell. Okay, that's very important, that we pull out the data and we try and sell that what type of agents in what regions and whatever their demographic profiles are, or what their abilities are, and where they're lacking, where they're not trying to reach, and of course build around training programs around that. So that's very important. So we try to holistically try to target these agents, and also we've got models where we're trying to figure out that agent is based on his performance is soon going to be ineffective, or it'll stop sourcing business, and basis that we reach out and try and see that he can be re-energized. Thank you.
Thanks. So I think while we spoke about agents, I think I'll move to Sanjay, where I think a lot of, Sanjay's sale comes from banker channel, where there are not really too many agents. And I think that's true with Anjana as well, where a lot of business comes from banks. So how do you look at getting bank data to help your sales guys and hyper-personalize this?
So, getting bank data is not very easy, as you would assume that we would love to have it, all of it, but of course, data sharing is not. But yes, as I see, there are a lot of initiatives going on at the industry level at this point, where, of course, based on the customer consent, can the data be shared across? And I'm hoping regulator is also actually going to help in that cause, which it is. And if, say, for example, account aggregator data, right? These days is a wealth of data available. Now, of course, it needs customer consent and all those things, but yes, if once you do that, you have that kind of data available, where you can really personalize the offering to the customer. After all, this hyper personalization is all about the data, the volume of data, the diversity of data, and how well we are able to analyze that data, and then give a very specific solution to the customer. As Sohail was saying, it's not just a product, right? It's a solution you offer it in multi-varied areas, not just maybe limited to insurance. But for that, you need to understand that customer better, in depth, and then analyze and predict what would be fitting best for the customer from a product point of view, how you sell him, where you sell him, and what, in the life insurance context, what time of life cycle you are selling him. So all these interventions can be possible if we have all these data. So one is the bank data, other is we were, as you were discussing, health data. The ABHA accounts are created. I think now it's close to 15-20 crores already registered there. So that's also a wealth of data. If there is a consent, then from underwriting and other perspectives, that's a huge data set which can be used by life insurers, health insurers, instead of relying on surrogate data these days, right? So that's what I think everybody is working towards, and hoping that some of the regulations will also be eased out, and the data will be available. And I'm sure the tools are available with everybody to analyze them much better than before.
So Priya, how do you guys use surrogate data as part of your underwriting process?
Sure. First and foremost, warm welcome. It's such a great pleasure to see you all in person and interact with the co-panelists in person versus virtual. Before I dive into how do we use surrogate data, I just want to take a moment and reflect on the fact that COVID, last 18 to 24 months have bent ourselves in all areas, in all facets possible, upside down. I mean, all that we were doing, that we were thinking as, the normal way of operating and the fast pace at which we were running our businesses, it in a jiffy changed everything the way we were operating. Now, talking about hyper-personalization, similar to, how COVID bent us in all possible ways backwards, it's important to understand in a country like India, with so much of diversity and so much of paradigm, contrast, getting data, structuring that data, ordering it for us to really, kind of analyze it to make insightful, analytics and insights to drive personalization and further hyper-personalization is not easy. Talking about underwriting and especially servicing, us as an organization, we've reinvented the whole thought process. And there is a paradigm shift because mostly any company, leave alone insurance as a sector, we would think about products. We would think about, how can we make products work and how products can be more successful. But when we talk about hyper-personalization, it is just the reverse. How can you really bring in customers at the center and, kind of develop all the solutioning around products, around how you operate from a service standpoint to really work for that customer? Because with hyper-personalization, you're not going to be able to use same cookie-cutter product and the services and the solution to work for every single customer with the nuances that is required. Talking about underwriting, as we all understand, health, insurance, in the absence of EDI, electronic data interface in India, unlike many of the developed countries where you put the SSN, you put, identification, ABHA, now one of my co-panelists spoke about. That's not existing. So how do you really get category information and identify how good or bad is the risk that you're going to underwrite? For us as an insurer and for the consumer as to what he or she is buying. Now, in that case, we've come up with segmented analytics and some bit of AI machine learning models where we could create personas of these customers basis past patterns and trends and some bit of geographical and some anecdotal elements of how the data works across the industry to identify the risk cohorts and accordingly offer solutions. To slap it on top of the risk cohorts, we've also created solutions to suit the customers in terms of what is the sum insured that is required, what's the kind of lifestyle that the consumer is leading. With that, not just offering a solution or a insurance that is sold as a package, but also creating those solutions for each consumer profiles and the persona. So that's what we have done. And risk management, especially from an underwriting perspective, has been kind of put into fray for it to really work for each consumer.
Thanks, Priya. I think Mukesh, you were also, I think, backstage you were talking about how the personalization also happens. Let's say I think you were talking about a specific example of motor. So, maybe if you can share it with the rest of us and elaborate on that.
Yeah, so as my colleagues mentioned that today we do not have the unique identifier for a customer or an insured, so it becomes difficult to actually devise the solution for that. But what is happening in the industry is going towards identifying the unique customer or the insured. As example given by Sanjay is Abha. But parallelly what is happening is, in fact, regulator is also promoting number of products which can help addressing the customer issue. For example, pay as you drive. So today when you buy a motor insurance, okay, it's a generic pricing for everyone. But today what we are doing is we have come up with pay as you drive product by which the people who are just driving over the weekend or probably who's driving from office to home, that's the only drive pattern they have. So for them, the risk is going to be much, much lower and the premiums are going to be much, much lower. So that's what is happening in the sandbox. So sandbox is basically an experimental platform that has been created by the regulator and that is being tried out. And that's where the underwriting, personalized underwriting is coming into picture to a specific cohort level.
And Nilesh, how does all this tie into a customer experience? Because on one side, you guys do a lot of work in terms of managing customer experience. So how does all this tie in and how do you help give a personalized experience to each customer from an end user point of view?
Sure. So, the whole hyper personalized thing is the intent of every organization is to deliver that wow factor to the customer. Right? That's why these efforts are being put in focus because of that. So the customer experience lies at the core, right? And what we believe is the customer experience or even the delivering the personalization, personalized experience for the customer goes through the organization, especially the employees, right? So that is one. How you handle the customers at different touch points, this is one. Second is how your employees are empowered, and a few people spoke about empowering the sales team, right? Educating sales team. So, training your sales team goes a long way in delivering that particular customer experience to your end customers, right? This is one part. But let me come back to delivering the hyper personalization, delivering that experience to the customer, and probably a couple of use cases might be helpful in driving the point home. Is context, as for me, plays a very important role in delivering the personalized experience to the customer, right? Let me give an example. Now, let's say I'm renewing my insurance, right? I'm paying my policy, and something is wrong in a payment gateway, in the back end. I try most of the time using my mobile app, because it's some issue with the payment gateway, it doesn't go through. I try a couple of times, it doesn't work. I go to the website, I try, because it's a core issue is somewhere else. So obviously the website payment is going to fail. What do I do? Because probably end user wakes up probably on the last day, so I'm desperate, right? Now I pick up the phone and call. Now when I call, and if the organization treats me as just another customer call and then routes me to billing and payment or renewal, premium policy renewal agent, that's a standard experience. But if you now look at the context, this is not a payment, a policy renewal call or premium renewal call. This is an escalation call. I tried multiple times on the mobile applications. I tried on website. And now I'm calling you. I'm escalating you. I'm speaking with somebody. I tried self-service, didn't work. I'm reaching out to you. So if you handle that call as an escalation call, that's a very different, it's a small nuance, right? But it's a different experience for the customer. You are delicately handling that particular call. So this is just one example. Now you can take this whole thing, probably not very much applicable to the insurance, but let's say I'm logging onto the website, maybe more applicable in the financial services, banking industry. My login fails once, twice, and if I get an SMS notification, this is your password reset link in case you forget your password, right? Because my login failed twice. Very small thing, but these are the small experiences that go a very long way in delivering that personalized experience. Small things that we want to do for the customers, right? But this is, for me, is delivering that hyper personalization, right? Looking at emotions of the customer, looking at the context, why they are calling, why they are reaching out to me, what they are doing with my website, what they are doing with my mobile applications, understanding and then reacting to those small things is what we really deliver that very, very personalized experience or hyper personalized experience, I would say.
I would like to.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I just want to add to what you mentioned. It's all about, I have insights. What do I do of the insights? Unless I'm not able to apply it to that point where my customer is interacting with me. So at that moment of interaction, identifying what's the context, what are the insights, and then making that experience a wow by minimizing the kind of effort which he puts in to carry out the DIY activity. So that would be the end outcome actually of hyper-personalized experience is what I would say.
Just to add to what both of them mentioned, just as a use case, I just got reminded. From a service perspective, as a company, we have developed a bit of a rule engine-based, profile-based, customized, personalized solution where a consumer goes onto the website, for buying a particular product because he or she has seen a particular aspect of the product. But offering a customized solution, as I was talking about, basis the risk cohort, basis the kind of requirement the consumer has, lifespan, and making a product recommendation. And, I remember he mentioned that pay-per-use and usage-based. So whatever sachet requirement the consumer is having, that recommendation engine, pushes that option for the consumer to go for rather than just pushing a bucket of, offering which he or she may not need at that point in time. And also talking about service, there's a lot happening on the, hyper-personalization on the service side of it, not only from an escalation and grievance redressal and CX perspective, but even from a call center perspective. If a consumer is reaching out to you with a particular requirement, how can you make that experience holistic, as you were mentioning, and trying and solve not only that issue, but also address possibly stated and unstated requirement on that particular call. So those are examples I thought worth mentioning.
Yeah, Suhail, sorry, you were saying something.
No, so very much in the same breath, I was giving a couple of examples, of personalization and what you said. I think even a lot of us today, when a customer is calling into, especially your call centers, contact centers, is actually predicting why the person is calling you. So for example, if the person just had a failed transaction, how does your smart IVR, the IVR tree changes. So if you had, a failed premium, you were trying to pay a premium and it failed. So typically for you, the one will go. And the other part is that the contact center person sitting there exactly knows from where you are coming. I think that's a one big example and which is being used. The other one is also that in this whole world of bots and AIs and self-service, it is very important to know when a customer is not being serviced. Because you're finally talking to a robot. So typically, whether you are on a website talking to a AI bot or chat bot, or you are even talking to a bot on the voice bot on a helpline. If you see, we try to use speech analytics to know when the customer is getting irritated or the same question second time, so that an agent can, proactively enter and also have the history of the conversation. So a lot of, especially in the services, therefore, It is, it's being targeted service rather than, somebody coming with a very generalistic one and asking, what is your problem?
So I think with service, I think what we've seen is that it is still slightly more controllable in a central environment. But a lot of times when you talk about personalizing solutions for customers from, let's say, a selling perspective, one of the issues that we have seen companies face is that whatever you think of, let's say, sitting in a corporate office, is not the message that keeps going out to the client. There is dilution at every level. We think that we have kind of put together something really cool, but by the time the customer hears it from, let's say, a salesperson's mouth, it kind of dilutes. So how do you ensure that what you think as personalization ends up being the same personalization that a customer receives? Because if that loop is not closed, then a customer hears something else. So do we have any thoughts on this one?
So, hi. Sorry. A quick point here to, both in servicing as well as, and more so in servicing, and also in sales, as you're rightly saying, you, at least till now, you can't leave that human element out. Yeah. So what that means is that, okay, if the sales is completely digital, you can, do it with technology to a large extent. But as we all know, life insurance or even health and other, insurance products there has to be a human interface. Even in general commercial lines, right? You have to have, you can't just sell digitally there, I'm sure for a long time, even now. So there, I think the technology can play an enabler role, that as we're talking about the customer service agent, unless, one is that he has all the information available from a customer's perspective, that what's his emotion looking like, and there are tools available these days which you can alarm him when the call comes in, that is an escalation call, his sentiment from this voice speech analytics can be deciphered, and you can alarm him that he's not in a good mood today, and you have to handle him with the soft gloves. So that human element for them to enable and to be able to deliver that experience, personalized experience to the customer, there are plethora of tools available, data analytics available, which can actually strengthen their behavior, strengthen their delivery when they actually communicate to the customer. And same is true for sales. Say, for example, today, if without any tools to back him up, the customer can go, the agent can go and and talk to the customer and maybe offer 1, 2, 3 products, right? Imagine a situation where he has a product recommendation rule, engine based on some solid analytics, where he, based on the XYZ profile of the customer, it pops up to him that, look, this is the product you should sell him. This is the kind of premium you should target for him because of his earning levels, blah, blah, blah. And probably this, we can waive off your underwriting. So just go ahead and ask him and commit to him that it's a STP product, right? Straight through. And you will get it in half an hour, 10 minutes, whatever it is. So I think that's the situation where we are, where with the mix of the tools and data analytics and the right training of the sales and the service force, I think we can achieve that.
Yeah. So, you want to add? Go ahead.
I just quickly want to add, you mentioned very important aspect from how do you maintain that, the consistency of messages in sales, right? Because the headquarter decides something, by the time it goes out, reaches out to the customer, how do you ensure that the message is not filtered out, right? So one is, there are, I think most of the organizations have solved that particular problem, but maintaining the personalization, right? So most of the time today what's happening is the selling, especially in insurance, is happening a telecalling, right? So you call the customers a lot of time. Simple thing is like, a very personalized thing from a customer perspective is use analytics to identify what is the best time for this customer to call, because you're calling that customer to sell multiple products. So you're calling that customer again and again, so you have the enough data. Just find out what is the best time to call this particular customer. Just apply analytics, you will get the answer. That simple thing, even kind of, I've seen some organizations go to the extent that what is the best time to call, but also what is the best phone number to call. In India, it is mostly mobile number, but elsewhere we have seen it's a home number or office number or mobile number, etc. So multiple things make it very, not only improve your chances of reaching out to the customer, but also you analytically, calling in the right time window for that particular customer. This is one. Second thing is maintaining the consistency is about, there is, most of the time it is a templatized, right? So that at least 90% of the time agents are sticking to the template and so on. But yet, I think Sohail spoke about speech analytics, right? And it's one of my favorite tools. And I've seen so many organizations, especially in the sales, using it very extensively. The way it is used is, in every sales team, you have the top performers and bottom performers, right? So you use analytics to identify, even though you have a template, there are certain things that top performers tend to put their own stuff. That kind of makes it click with the customer, and they tend to get better closing ratio than the other ones, bottom ones, right? So you analyze, speech analytics helps you analyze that, what's happening, what is making these people more successful, and they use that data in training, and then lift the performance of the bottom performers, right? So 2-3 things I just thought I'll call it out from sales perspective here.
Sure, Nilesh.
So I just wanted to add, your question around, gone are the days when solutions or, products were created and then mass marketed to the consumers. It's now about solving, outside in rather than inside out, and companies have learned it the hard way. And all of us have morphed our, working style to adapt to what is happening in the larger ecosystem. Talking about how do you make sure, or rather how do you, first assess the pulse and course correct. I mean, that's what I understood about what you're trying to say, Arun, and a couple of them mentioned. So when you're creating solutions and creating product offerings, and you go to market and make those connections through face-to-face selling or through your various online machinery, you have to continuously keep your ear to the ground, both humanizing, as Sanjay was mentioning, and technologically using the tools that are fit to drive the outcomes that we're expecting. So like speech analytics that was mentioned, then you have sentiment analysis that is done across the listening post, in social media, your handles, what are the consumers or prospects talking about? How do you get a pulse of whatever is being communicated versus what is being understood of what you're trying to message as a product or a service? Those are tools, techniques, and of course analytics to analyze and keep evolving your messaging down the line. So a lot of tools around social media assessment, social media reputation management, and driving the outcomes is something that we really use ourselves, and it really works wonderfully for us to course correct if at all messaging is not really in the semblance of what we want to really drive it.
Fair enough. So maybe before going to, Gaur. Yeah, so I think I'll go to Gaurav and
Yeah, please.
So maybe I'll just set the context of why I asked this specific question, because when we look at how many kinds of products are sold, we see that, about 70% of people don't sell more than 3 products. I mean, you can offer like 20,000 products, but boss, it doesn't matter, main wahi bhejunga. So that's the context of me asking, but yes, Gaurav.
So I was just going to say on a lighter note, this is one of the products, I think maybe you are the one who's selling it, which I saw outside, which augments the selling process, which is basically you use the tool, and where the salesperson can select the profile of the customer and the product he is selling, and use that to custom build a PPT or a PDF or whatever, which can be immediately shot across. So that is what I'm trying to add to that. That's a good tool. I think it's a very intuitive tool. I think there is a need from the market for such tools. Of course, the AI and what these team panelists have talked about is of course going to augment that tool in order to better sell to the customer. But that's something which I think the corporate folks especially, or in terms of specialized products like health insurance, where you need to reach across to and explain a very complex product to a thing, and the various amount of add-ons and covers which you have. It will augment that process. And I've seen some of the video-based tools which are there in the market, which will aid the selling journey and customize the video tool to such an extent that the person who is receiving the video is seeing a process which is or seeing a video which is as per the needs which he had defined to the salesperson at the time of the need. That's how it happens.
Yeah.
Just wanted to
Yes,
add one aspect out here. So though my colleagues are mentioning about the commercial products where the assisted sales is required, but in case of retail product also, in India at least, the maturity level of understanding health product is still not there. So even if a customer is coming online, okay, you would require assisted sales where salespeople or the telecallers need to be trained. So the way we have done it is when the person is coming, he's doing the R&D on the website. As soon as he leaves, okay, that call gets assigned to a particular telecaller. And of course, as Nilesh mentioned, it's basis the sum insured and some of the other parameters. There are different categories of telecallers defined. Okay, and they call up the customer, they explain them the product, and they understand whether that was something that was they were looking for or it was something else, and they offer it. So my belief is, even though we have the analytics, but in India to reach to that level, it'll still it'll take time. That's what my feel is.
I just wanted to add to it the use case which you mentioned, the 2 use cases, and what Mukesh mentioned. So essentially, an edge of personalization is understanding, deriving insights of your calling team. What are the key highlights of your calling team, and dynamic allocation of, okay, fine, this is the profile. This kind of profile gets converted by this individual. This is the time when he is most productive. And coupling those insights also with the insights of the customer. So it's like inside and outside both, you couple together for a higher impact is what I wanted to.
Makes a lot of sense. So, so when you're talking about coupling the insights, I think I'll take a step forward, and I think what I'm rephrasing what you said, and can I say that you're looking at having conversations from your side based on the customer story.
Yep.
So the customer story could be I don't know, go deeper. It could be persona based. It could be the life stage based. It could be the specific issue that they say. So we are talking about. You're saying how do I really match the customer?
It's marrying the customer profile with the best suited salesperson at your end, so that the impact or the end result is a conversion, or optimum.
So how do we look at in terms of personalization today? I think a lot of things have moved to telling stories. I think now customers don't really look at which product you're buying, because I think especially with insurance, every company has 20 odd products. You look at all variants, etc. So now customer doesn't. I mean, for example, I think there's a common thing which is, do you know which bank you bank with? Maybe yes. Do you know what is the name of your savings account? I don't. Do you have insurance? Yes. Do you know what product? No. So in that case, what really sells today is the stories, in terms of how you're personalizing stories. So what has happened, I think especially in the last 2 years, what has happened from what you've seen in terms of helping tell a story to the customer which is personalized, rather than saying, ki, haan, ye product aap le lo. So I know a lot of us have worked on these, projecting stories to the customer based on their reality part.
So I think if you look at it, there are a combination of things. One, as we said, knowing the customer better, knowing his current financial, his financial situation, which a lot of us do in terms of which products to sell. And then comes up the things like what's the age of the customer, what are his financial goals. So typically, like for example, you will mix 2 products. It will be a saving product up to a certain age, and then it converts into another annuity product. And therefore, in the second half of your, probably your life, it's very beneficial to you. Now, what we're also seeing this is that one thing are the products, and especially in insurance, the products also gets complex, especially in life. So we are also doing personalization, and how do you explain a product? Like these days, you have customized videos, which are like frames shot over multiple frames. So even when you take a product, ability to explain the product to a customer, or even explain a story, how will it go? Gone are the days where you have a very confusing BI sheet, which you say give and get of 25 years, an Excel table. And I think even when you're speaking on stories, converting those stories, not just financial mathematics, but also the way you are delivering to the customer. I think that's another big personalization. We have seen various cohorts, and there are people who would like videos, the people who are more driven by numbers, and there are people who are more driven by emotions. To give you an example, some of the insurers today are actually, when you are actually trying to send a renewal message, is sending you a aged picture of you 20 years after, because ultimately you want to create that empathy that you are saving for this guy who's not your current self, but somebody who's 20 years later. So a lot of personalization, the way you are delivering, connecting customers. We also see personalization coming even in products. Now, a lot of products today, I know in India, still limited. For example, a lot of companies have fit apps, right? And therefore, based on the steps you take, the lifestyle you have, and I think that is all data which you are capturing. So hopefully, one, you are able to subsidize their premiums for this product, but same point of to get it enough to launch the next one.
True.
So what?
Go ahead.
Okay. So one of the things that has changed in last 2 years, I mean, earlier when you used to sell the health product, people never used to understand, okay, people will say, okay, I'm very much fit, so I don't need it. But after COVID, things have changed a lot. And generally in the general insurance, I mean, we don't sell products actually. What we sell is the claim. So now it has become very easy to explain that in case of an eventuality, what all things are going to be covered. So that way it becomes easy. So even if a company has 20 products, but the person who is selling it will tell, okay, basis your requirement, you want to cover ambulance, you want to cover this type of room category, this is the best fit product for you. So that's how things are changing, and people are becoming more and more averse. People are taking more and more insurance as compared to 2 years back when people were really rejecting it.
Yeah.
Even with premiums going up.
Oh yeah, of course, premiums are going up.
So I just want to add to what Mukesh mentioned. One is, insurance, as you rightly said, the awareness around having insurance, need of insurance, it being a priority. To second, how does it operate? Both of this has been a challenge. And yes, COVID has pushed the envelope to some extent, and we saw some bit of tailwinds and, a sudden, kind of gust of volumes coming in. But yeah, I mean, it's again back to where it was. So talking about storytelling, if I were to just take an example as our company, one is about storytelling around product and selling those products. Second is about taking a larger than life, kind of center stage. During COVID, we did marketing campaigns around Baat Kijiye, mental health. Right? I mean, there was so much of, challenge. We all were socially distant. There was so much of connection loss. And, leave alone anything else, but the sheer living in those, four walls of your house, having no connection. So we did a lot of storytelling through the campaign of Baat Kijiye and how, mental health and your wellness within your house is very, very important. And of course, we are a health insurance company. Our driver of any engagement is to really keep our consumers and the whole country fit. That was one medium with which we did the storytelling, taking the center stage and a higher moral ground of making sure that people remain engaged. And, we had stories of, families, how they are connecting, maybe birthday celebrations over virtual call. How are you really connecting with your larger family and your team? So that was one, element I also want to add. The second one was we launched a program around teleconsults. So telemedicine, where, at that time when COVID hit, the telemedicine guidelines were not very clear. They were not as relaxed. We went and made a representation to the regulator that given that COVID has hit, people cannot, for even dire emergency where hospitalization is not required, they can't access care, can't meet the doctor. So we launched a teleconsult helpline for certain, ailments like fever, stomachache, small issues where they could access the care through the telephone and also have, in case of emergency, a doctor visiting their house rather than they having to step out. So those elements also through storytelling, through videos, a lot of content, because nowadays marketing material and, whatever you want to really push as content has moved from print, digital media to personalized storytelling and, mechanism to really have influencers talk about how it is impacting their lives. So those are two examples I thought it would be, kind of worth sharing.
Yeah, so maybe I'll just have, each of us talk about, just conclude what, a 30-second conclusion on where you see hyper-personalization going, and then maybe we'll open it up for questions. We'll start with you, Mukesh.
So I would say from this point onwards, definitely we are going in a direction where we have started understanding the customer better. And we also understand that Grahak Bhagwan hai, customer is God. So we have to understand customer better to provide the better services, better products. Because if customer is happy, the business becomes incidental. So that's how we should be thinking, and I believe the industry is moving in that direction only. That's what my thought is.
Thanks. I feel this is the start. And we have now technology available where we are able to discover what are the microsegments possible, right? So this is a good start, and this is only going to revolutionize how we look at products and how we do the selling. It's going to change, and it's going to have a larger impact on how we do the business today.
Thanks, Anjana.
So hyper-personalization has heralded, but as a country, there's a huge amount of effort that we need to make in terms of how we collect data, how we create insightful, know-how around it to drive hyper-personalization, and nothing takes away the humanizing factor of technology and making sure that we treat our customers and the larger ecosystem with empathy. That is not going to go anywhere, however hyper-personalized product and offerings we may offer. That's what I want to say.
Thanks, Riya. Yes, Gaurav.
Yeah. So I'll not talk about, I'm a techie, so I'll talk about the tech part. I think data is very key to whatever we are talking about. And while in insurance we have some certain restrictions in terms of the data we are gathering, I don't think, especially in general insurance, not having KYC and the agents, of course, also putting in their own numbers, trying to identify the customer and, of course, profile the customer is something which all of us want, and we want to do that. And once the regulators decide, and of course it will improve. But having said that, I think we have adequate amount of data which is available in various shapes and forms. And the more we start mining that and averaging that, the better the product will be and whether the outcomes will be. And that will, the outcomes, of course, impact is 360 degrees. Of course, it impacts the customers, it impacts underwriting and the process of sales and of course service. So I think data is the key behind this, and the faster we are able to leverage that, and the better it will be.
Thanks, Gaurav. Yes, sir.
I think while everybody spoke about data, I think what's very important is that we have now a fledgling and a growing ecosystem. I think that's a big enabler for hyper-personalization, because how do you get data? You can't get data yourself. Most of insurance companies are single LOB business. So I think getting into financial bureaus, industry coming together, creating those databases, I think those is very, very important. And exchange of data with other sectors, like in mutual funds or banks, and I think there are regulations which is around them. I think that becomes a very key area to get data in order to personalize.
So I think right now we are at a very early stage. We have been doing in bits and pieces, these personalization efforts. As my friends were saying, that from here on, the success will depend on whether at the industry level, and not only industry level, BFSI as well as health side, other regulators in their purview also. If we get a good coordination and we can really create a good data repository, that is one of two types. One is that personal data with the consent-based access, and other is anonymized data also, which based on which the analytics can happen. That large chunk of data is also important. So these two are available, then we can leap into the next stage of hyper-personalization.
Thanks. Nilesh, yes.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I would say, as long as these organizations don't reach out to me especially on weekends and holidays with a personalized offer, and don't make my family hyper, we're good, right? So, but on a jokes apart, I would say we're just getting started, right, with the hyper personalization story, and there is lots of data, as many of us rightly said. The lots of data is we have available now, and technology is going to play a very important role going forward, right? So, like I said, we're just getting started here. So.
Thanks, Nilesh. I think one of the other things that we wanted to talk about, but because of paucity of time that we're not doing, is in terms of how do we kind of fit specific products as part of a personalized overall offering. Because a portfolio solution to somebody, let's say somebody at 25 needs health insurance, needs life insurance, also needs some investment, mutual funds, etc., etc. So I think that's one thing that we wanted to talk about, but we really don't have the time. So please feel free to catch up with all the panelists offline whenever you have. So maybe we'll just open it up for 2 questions for the panelists, so all of us sitting here. So maybe we'll just take 2 questions, and yeah. So how do you handle CAC, which is cost of customer acquisition? So that's the question. So
Yeah, I was just asking, how do you handle the CAC in this hyper, customization world that you're trying to say personalization is there, but how do you handle that kind of customer acquisition cost for as a company?
So I think the whole play is, is your conversion funnel. Yes. So you will have a cost of acquisition. Now, how better you are able to convert it. So typically, right from your SEO strategy to and if you look at your funnel, from, session to lead to quote and quote to payment and final purchase. If more you optimize this funnel, you can get juice more out of that. Your conversions are higher. That's the only way to get your cost of acquisition in line.
Yeah, just to add to it, I mean, how do you ensure that the leakage, just because you have this enabler, you will be able to stop the leakage from your funnel, because you'll be able to target very meaningfully, and you'll be able to relate to the prospect. So it's an enabler to help you have a larger funnel.
I think it will turn out to be better, the CAC, if you are able to have a pinpoint offering rather than a carpet bombing. So as the funnel will be much sharper, So I think at the end of this, of this effort, if you compare the two, you should end up with a better CAC, frankly.
Like they say, at every stage your lead is qualified. So that probably makes it easy.
What is rural area insurance impact?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
What is rural area insurance target?
The rural India target. Yeah.
So I think one is that we are probably all of us are selling some government-based schemes for the rural India, which is anyway we are as a compulsory, not compulsory, but as a part of our bid to support the people in rural areas are selling those products. So that anyways is a very good reach there. For example, in life insurance, PMJJBY has a very good reach, and all the insurers who are primarily backed by the PSU banks are actually selling it. They are probably loss making, but that's okay. But I think when we are able to actually do this kind of a hyper personalization efforts, and we know our rural customers also better, then they can be specific products which are customized for them. I think that's where we will head, and those could be profitable too. I mean, not like maybe today's product, but in future. I think that's where we should eventually head to if we are really able to crack this code.
Let me add to this thing in terms of general insurance. Are you aware of Common Service Center, CSC? So CSC is a SPV which has been devised by government, okay, where for every 5 villages there is one common service center, through which government provides all the services to the farmers or the rural people, okay. The general insurance companies are integrated with their portal. They are selling the policies out there itself. So there are products which are defined specifically for the rural areas, which are being sold by their representative only out there.
Even life insurance companies are integrated with the CSC portal, where they are selling. At least I know of 5 or 6 life insurance companies who are integrated with the portal, and they are selling. And with penetration of internet and mobile, the way it has penetrated in India, the outreach is no more a challenge. Mobility,
So it's around close to 500,000 villages are already covered as part of CSC program. So there are 125,000 CSC centers across the India where these policies are getting sold.